All righty, here we are at the Crystal Clear Point Studios. We're talking again. You better watch out. We're wound up today. I forgot to change that last picture on the video. I'll have to fix it.
Yes.
Give me
You
a
should
break.
change that one to the cute little picture where we have our heads together.
I'll do something. I'll fix it. So we got Deborah Colleen Rose and Luann Morris and Crystal T. Yeah. Applause all around. Are you muted? I didn't hear you.
That's because we're not saying anything.
Oh, well, say
That's
something.
because we're waiting for you to finish talking.
Wait all you want. There's no guarantee. All right. Am I recording? Yes, it is recording. Okay, so I got this working right, it looks like. I've got my background up. We got the intro video. We're rocking and rolling with style and grace and who knows what else. All right, so what do we talk about today?
Angels.
Is it? I was confused because I wasn't listening. Is it angels or angles?
It's angels. Just call me angel of the morning, angel. Just
rub my cheek before you leave me, baby.
You know, isn't it funny though that we use the word angel as a term of endearment?
Yeah,
Yes.
it can be.
And then when people are bad, we go, "You little devil."
Makes sense. I mean, they're kind of a subconscious archetype. They've been in our lexicon for so long, and so it makes sense.
So,
Yeah.
what do y'all know about angels?
Not much. But the definition here says religions often depict angels as benevolent celestial intermediaries between God or heaven and humanity.
All right, there you have it.
They have also been included in other roles such as protectors, guides for humans, such as guardian angels, and servants of God. So
And warriors.
I think that's the way I look at them, as guides and being from
there's
heaven.
just a considering my walk of spirituality that I've been in for the last quarter of a century or more. We actually, work a lot with the angelic realms. In fact, when you're doing your meditations and preparing your sacred space, if you will, one of those methods is, calling in 4 of the archangels, so that they can stand protection and guardian around the quarters of your space. But at the same time, each of the angels brings with them their own particular type of energy and their own particular type of focus. So y'all mentioned, different roles that the angels might have, and in Christianity and in Judaism, in particular, the 2 of the more prominent ones who deal with the concepts of angels, they really break them down into 3 classifications, and there's an average of about 3 subclassifications underneath each of those. So there's the highest order angels. Those are going to be like your Gabriel and your Metatron and Bellerophon and things like that. And then you're going to have your middle order, which are the ones that kind of rule over certain domains or watch over domains or the virtues of life or the different powers of divinity that are out. So they represent that or they channel that. And then there's the lowest orders, which deal with like smaller regions like towns or principalities. And then there's some of the lesser archangels and then regular angels underneath that. So there's a lot of things, whereas your highest order are actually the ones that are more often depicted or physically described in the Bible, like your seraphim, your cherubim, and those that depict thrones. So there's actual angels that kind of look like thrones.
Yeah, but let me clarify something. In the Jewish Holy Bible, Holy Book, the Christian holy book does not talk about angels in depth the way the Jewish book does. And
True.
they only
Very
talk about them very briefly. Like Metatron in a lot of writings is listed as the ultimate, not Michael, as leader of the
true.
angelic realm. And you will not see that anywhere in the Christian Holy Bible. That's never mentioned. When you are looking at Christianity as a system, if you read the other books that are not included in the Bible, like the book of Enoch, you're going to get a lot more about angels and that type of thing. But I have decided you guys are setting me up for arguments because, there's some things here that are accepted as pretty standard accepted knowledge that I don't agree with. So,
Well,
we'll talk about that as we go along, but
I looked up the angels in the Jewish Encyclopedia. Yes, there is one. And it
yes,
says that only 2 angels are mentioned by name in the Hebrew Bible. That's Michael, Archangel, and Gabriel, Archangel.
that's true. That is correct. The
So,
others come from other additional studies, but not by the
right.
Holy Book.
So
Yeah, and we have to bear in mind also that when we're looking at the official holy books of these 2 major offshoots, because Islam also talks about angels as well, and both Christianity and Islam are offshoots of the original Judaism, if the history of the Bible was to be believed. Or is to be believed. So when we look at those angels, we also got to remember that in all of those books, none of them are complete. So as Deborah said, some of those other texts or researchers were those things that were not included in the Bible or in the Torah or in, I forget what the holy book in Islam is. So a lot of those texts were like cherry picked, not to put in there. So when we talk about Hebrew scholars, for instance, with their list of angels and their hierarchy that they've published separately in a separate work, a lot of that comes from those original scrolls that are, that they found in that cave, however many long inside those stone or clay.
yeah, because
pots.
this is the Quran mentions Gabriel and Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is hilarious. So if you go and just Google angels history, the first thing that pops up is the Angels were originally based in Los Angeles and were owned by singing cowboy Gene Autry. They're talking about the sports team. I find that hilarious. But the thing about it is that I think that there's a lot of history involved in putting together all of the holy books. Some of them make sense. Some of them are political. I think the one thing about angels in general, about why there's not a lot about them in the Christian Bible, is that it ties into what we see as our 10 Commandments. They're about not having idols and keeping our focus on God. Because I see a lot of things going on now that, in my opinion, would be classified as angel worship. And that's not conducive with the Christian belief system. I don't believe that as humans, we have the right to command angels, to ask them of favors, tell them what to do, that type of thing, because they are under God's realm and under his care and guidance, and they do his bidding, not ours. Doesn't mean that we don't have angels around us, doesn't mean that they don't do a lot of things for us. I have personally seen them. I accept them, but I don't think it's my job. Now, all right, Michael, listen here. I need you to come over here and do this. I got a lot of weed picking in my yard. Let's get this done. I just don't think that is under my realm of authority. That's what I'm saying here.
Mm-hmm.
No, but we could ask for intercede.
No, we can't.
Yeah.
No, we can't. That's God's decision. That's
Well,
under his realm decision.
Ezekiel, I was reading Ezekiel depicted angels as having 4 faces: the lion, the ox, the eagle, and the human. They have straight legs, 4 wings, and bull hooves.
That's got to
And
be scary looking.
And feet that gleam like polished brass.
Yeah. Yeah. That'll get your attention, won't it?
Yeah.
Hello, come knocking on my door. Is it Halloween? I don't
Yeah.
think so.
Well, the thing is also, you want to think and look about this as well. They're describing these angelic or heavenly beings. And when you look at some of the ancient texts and scrolls and tablets that predate the advent of Christianity, including the time and realms of most of the Old Testament from other cultures, what they would deem as angels or heavenly beings, they would have said they were actual deities that came from another realm. I mean, let's look at the ancient Sumerian and Babylonian texts, for instance. When you look at just taking like the advent of the flood and the story of Noah and his three sons, and then the angels and the communications and everything else, the names, this text predates Christianity by thousands of years, but it's sitting here and it's telling basically the same story. The names are pronounced or spelled almost identically in almost the same chronological order. The only difference is, and instead of Noah just being some hapless, person and human that God approached and just said, "Hey, look, dude, I'm gonna flood the earth, gather these two of every kind, and build this boat. Just trust me, it's gonna come." The only main difference is that, he was a person that was created by these angelic or heavenly beings that, was genetically bred. And, these angels, if you will, were lesser children of God, if you will, that were, in charge of different things. They were the scientists. They were, they talk about having the 13 goddesses who were responsible for giving birth to humanity, things of that nature. So, it goes in a whole lot deeply. And we're talking about a whole different culture, but different cultures are going to look at these things as different things, if that makes sense, where,
well, no, and I think a lot of that still overlaps with Judo-Christian beliefs and different things as well, because the reason we had the flood was because they were trying to get rid of evil in the world. And there's talk of the giants that we had in the world at that time, and the explanation of the giants is that they were the crossbreed of angels and human women. Now, my question, because I question everything I read, is that, okay, how did the angels take human form, and how was that possible? But supposedly we have the Nephilim. David killed Goliath. Goliath was supposed to be Nephilim, according to many stories, which was why he was a giant. So we have that going on. Then we have the not conspiracy theories, but part of that train of thought of that aliens are actually angels, or angels are actually aliens, and that's how we got all the technology that we got thousands of years ago, and that's how the pyramids were built. So definitely, I think that we can agree on one thing, at least today, is that if angels are involved in this world, we're going to get a lot of things that we weren't expecting, because they're going to have information and access and supernatural powers that we may or may not have had access to without their help. So
Well,
it makes sense that the Roman gods, the Greek gods, the Sumerian gods, all of those stories coincide if you think about the fact that maybe the gods and goddesses were actually angels down here messing around where they shouldn't have been messing around, maybe. So.
and in my readings, they said that it wasn't until the 3rd century that angels actually got wings and human bodies and were depicted in that way. So when, that's the way I get colors when I feel like I'm trying to interpret angels, because to me, they're spirits. We depict them as human bodies to make them believable to us.
Well, I think they could have bodies, because if you believe in supernatural, you're basically saying, I believe in magic. And with supernatural and with magic, I believe all things are possible with the right circumstances and the right energy. And part of that energy is our belief system and how much power we put into our beliefs. So do they live in a physical body? I don't think so. Can they have a physical body? Yeah. Will that physical body have a penis? That's an interesting concept. And will that penis shoot sperm? That's even a more interesting concept. So, but it could be possible.
How did we get on this? Where are you trying to tell me that that's why you're talking about the humans and angels having children?
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah, how did that happen? How's that possible? But it is mentioned in all of the holy writings that I'm aware of in some form or fashion that the two came together. And because they thought women were beautiful. So, well, if you had all those damn faces, I could see why they would think women were beautiful. You know, they got a lot going on with that. So, and they had to have some kind of form. If it wasn't a physical body, what was it that made them look like that? You know what I'm saying? Because some of them
Right.
are described as having 7 pairs of wings and eyes all over their face. And
I just think some of the ancients were, inhaling a little bit too much of that blue lotus,
yeah, they were smoking.
or having too much communion wine, or,
Mushroom.
that it could be. I mean, in all honesty, though, you want to, if you think of when we're looking at heavenly beings and they're pretending to be something, doesn't it make sense though that they would pretend to be something more familiar to you than something extraordinary? Does that make sense? So,
Yeah.
so
Because I'll tell you this, my personal experience, I didn't believe, which is weird, but I didn't really think that angels were important, didn't really believe in them, didn't give them any thought for probably 25 years. Even though they're in the Bible, we sing about them in Christmas time, they deliver the message of Jesus. I'm like, who gives a damn about angels? You know, they're not really
well,
important.
they're basically, I think of them as the cogs that keep the corporation that is Haven and the realms of God organized, if you will. I think of them as the secretaries, the guides, the docents,
the
everything from the
messengers? That's what
security.
I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
Well,
They
they're called the
basically,
watchers, actually. The
Huh?
watchers.
yeah, they're
Called the
watchers.
Yes,
They
they do that.
report. They
But here's
report.
what's funny. I started taking it seriously when I got more involved in my prophetic gifts because I started hanging out more with people that were involved in their supernatural and prophetic gifts. And these people all started telling me that I had an angel that was with me all the time. Now, okay, big deal. Yeah, you hear crap all the time, and people tell you things all the time, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not. But here's what got my attention. They all described this angel the same way, and they were not in the same room at the same time. This is over a period of time. My angel was 30 foot tall. He is 30 foot tall. And he wears white robes, and he's got the feet as big as a Volkswagen almost. And when you have like 35 people over the course of 4 years describe something to you the same way with no provocation other than, do you know you got a big ass angel following? You
Which one
start to
was that
take
again?
30-foot angel.
It sounds to me like you're describing Sandalphon or Bellerophon.
Well, he tells me his name is Ignatius. I named my dog after him. I call my dog Iggy.
Okay.
So
I'm going to search the dictionary of angels and see if there's an Iggy.
I don't think there is, but there is a saint named Ignatius. So he may have just picked that name because there's a lot of writings by Ignatius that really resonate with me, and I enjoy reading them and stuff. But this angel, I'm going to tell you what, he is a warped MF. I mean, he's got a warped sense of humor. And he is just, he's an incredible little personality. He really is.
Well, he is hanging out with you.
Yeah, well, yeah. At least he's not hanging his head going, oh God.
You've seen the pictures of the angels that are all slumped over.
Yeah.
That's what my
Oh,
angel
yeah.
looks like.
Yeah, I get that because I feel the same way at the end of the day. What's she doing now? Oh my God. What are you doing? Are you researching it?
Well, I was looking to see if there's an Ignatius out there, but
Sandalphon's
Okay.
a pretty cool angel, though, because I have angel oracle cards, so I have started reading about them and stuff, and looking at some of the things, and it is interesting reading. My thing is that I don't know how much credence I put into a lot of it because it doesn't really change the way I do business day to day, spiritually. You know what I'm saying? Hello, did everybody go sleep?
No,
no.
we're looking
We're all got our phones out.
because
Sandalphon.
Crystal said Sandalphon, and he's got different names that in different Midrash, Talmud. Those are the religions he's in.
He gathers the prayers and passes them on to God. That's his main job.
He's the twin brother of Metatron, it says.
Yeah.
Metatron's the big dude. He's the one that's in charge of everything.
Yeah.
Whose human origin as Enoch is similar to the human origin of Sandalphon.
Mm-hmm.
So interesting.
It would be interesting to find where they have gathered all this information and compiled it, since it does come. There's not like book you go to.
Well, actually, I have a really great resource that will help with that. I just posted the link in the chat. It is the Dictionary of Angels.
Mm-hmm.
And what's unique about it, as opposed to a lot of the other books about angels, is that it actually will tell you what chapter and or verse in the Bible or the Talmud or the Quran that this particular angel or class of angel is mentioned in. So when you start looking in there, it'll kind of, and it also, in some cases, will actually tell you which version of the Bible, for instance, where it's like the Cologne version of the Bible or the Gutenberg version of the Bible and that sort of thing. Because, you know, we got to remember when we're talking about these different holy books through the centuries, they've been edited, they've been adjusted, they've been tweaked or directed by the hand of man, which was not necessarily always the hand of the divine, if you will, if that makes sense. So not to, you know, offend anyone, but.
And I don't know why it's difficult to think about the concept of angels being involved in daily business here, since the devil, Satan, the morning star, was the head angel in the
led the other angels in praise to the throne. Yeah.
Yep. And so here we are, the most beautiful
Morning
angel
star.
now running amok on the earth, free reign to do as he will, playing by his own set of rules, hoping, praying. Seriously, what does he think? Does he think that he eventually will win out over God, or is he just making hay while he can? What do you think he thinks?
Well, I'm thinking that you can't have the light without the dark. It's about having negative and positive, light and dark, good and evil. I think that truly exists.
Well, and if you, depending on who you ask about, you know, Satan's, you know, downfall was his pride. And angels were allegedly, you know, in later writings, you know, angels were not allowed to have, you know, the same types of emotions or feelings or breadth of scope as what humans did. So that's, you know, because if nothing else, Lucifer and the people and his ego and pride was such that, you know, other angels followed him. So at one point, angels had freedom of choice and freedom of thought in, you know, in the Christian and whatever others faith. However, in later times, as depicted in the Bibles, it's mentioned that the, you know, angels don't have the same freedom of choice as humans have anymore. And I wonder, even though it's not explicitly mentioned, if that was because of the downfall of Lucifer, the morning star, you know, the bright shining one, as he was referred to, you know. So if maybe because later on there's a song that's one of the phrases goes, "Amazing grace, a song that even holy angels cannot sing," because angels are not allowed the same grace should they transgress against God as humans do. Because if humans, you know, just basically say, "Okay, Jesus, I accept you. I repudiate my sins and I'm repentant, blah, blah, blah," then they can go to heaven, you know. Whereas angels, there's none of that. You're cast out, period.
I got the answer to that. I have the answer to
Please, that would be great, because I've been meaning to try to research it, but, you know, I'd love to hear your thought.
My thoughts is that, first of all, angels did not live by the same set of rules that man did. We did, you know, before Jesus, we had the Old Testament rules, which we had the sacrifices and the first fruits and all that. So this is what we always did. And we had to make sacrifices to make retribution, to do praise, to offer up our tithes. The angels never had a system like that. Okay. They were already in a place of honor. They were already where they wanted to be or where they were supposed to be. We're trying to get where they started out at, basically, is what it boils down to, because we're now in human form, which they are not. However, I do not believe that keeps them from seeking grace. They just cannot do it through saying, I accept Jesus as my Lord and Savior, and I know that you sacrificed and took yourself away from God's presence for 3 days so that I could now be in his presence always. They can't do that.
Okay, so but does that mean that they can't have grace? And if
No,
so,
they absolutely can. And I've seen it. And here's why I'm telling you this. When I do house cleansings, generally it's either residual energy or it's, people energy. I have encountered demonic energy though. Okay. Do what you want to with that information. I'm not debating that. And I'm sure that if anyone ever watches this, I'll get some hate mail. Go ahead. I don't care. But I have been attacked. I have been hit. I have been bitten. I have been scratched. I have encountered it. I sat down one day, and I don't go in there and throw holy water around the house and shake my crucifix, because I didn't even have one till recently, and say, the power of Christ compels you. I do pray. I do offer up myself as sacrifice to God, because that's what I believe is necessary. But in the conversation that I had with this demonic being, I said, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you I know, but it seems to me that you made a choice to leave heaven. You could at least make a choice to go have a conversation with God and see if there's other options open to you, because this isn't getting you anywhere. Because I can tell you, of all the things that demons are, stupid is not one of them.
Yeah.
So by that rationality and that thing, then there is a chance that, Lucifer, who is sometimes called Satan, should they repent, be returned to heaven and a place of honor.
I think so. I have said from day one, I was saved when I was 8 years old, and I have said from day one, it will never surprise me to see who is in heaven when we finally take a head count, because grace is unlimited. And if it's unlimited, that means it reaches everywhere and nothing can stop it. It is all powerful. So it will not surprise me. But what was interesting to me is that I definitely felt that spirit leave and a sense of peace fall onto that property and into that home. And that was 10 years ago, and they've never had an issue there again. Never. And it was considered to be a highly haunted, possessed house for years and years and years. So I do think that there's different sets of rules, because they're not human. They're not. And so, and I don't think it's our job to figure that out either. So that's the other thing I think.
This is off subject.
It's off subject. Okay. Well, it's still kind of at. Oh, you. Okay,
well, she was talking about demons. So, and house clearings. So my question for her is, do you feel it a responsibility to release these entities that are haunting places?
That's why I can't go to certain places, because if you go to these professional haunted houses, that they do like official investigations, ghost investigations and stuff, many of them will have you sign a legal document. I don't know how it's enforced, but it sets an intent and an idea that you are not to mess with the spirits. You're not to do anything but go in and observe. And I feel like I have a moral and spiritual obligation to help if I see an issue. So I just won't go. I mean, I can't go because I would be in violation of my own ethics.
Because I feel like that's what we're supposed to be doing, is that people are concerned about what's going on in their homes and around, and they want us to solve the problem. And sometimes by solving that problem, you ask them to leave.
Yeah.
And so,
well, the thing is also, if there is such a thing as free will, and like I said, sometimes, you know, this might be an angelic spirit that's just in a grumpy mood, or what we might term a demonic spirit, or even it could just be a human spirit that's really, really pissed off. But if we are to believe that, you know, we all have free will to a certain extent, you know, then, ours isn't necessarily so much to cleanse the house as it is to present the option. And, you know, they're going to decide, okay, I'm either going to stay or go. I'm going to still keep making this, da, 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 or I'm, you know,
Well, I'm not
because,
going to arm wrestle with them or anything like that. I'm just going
yeah,
to say, you know what, I don't know why you're wanting to be here. You're really
yeah,
not wanted here. You're not serving any purpose. And with all the things that are going on, I can't believe that you're happy here. I mean, I have
mhm,
conversations. I don't go in there and do a lot of I have one ritual. I have two. I'm sorry. I have two rituals at a house cleansing. One is I pray, and the others I wash the feet of the people that are participating in the cleansing, whether they live there or they're there as observers or whatever, because this puts me in the right frame of mind. And then I just go through and do what I feel like I'm being called to do, and so that I can reach a connection with whatever's in the house. And Luann has been with me when this has happened, and we've had some doozies. I mean, sometimes it's
yeah,
not any big deal. It's just residual energy. It's like somebody should have come in there and did a supernatural house dusting, and
yeah,
everything would have been fine, you
yeah.
know. And then
And
we've
when I,
had some
yeah,
that were crazy. I mean, literally crazy. It was like layer upon layer upon layer upon layer, because it just kept adding to it and adding to it.
yeah,
And
and sometimes ours isn't so much to cast them out as it is to bring peace or give them the tools or the strength that they need to elevate or move on, you
exactly.
know. And then, you know, sometimes we do that by like negotiating the peace between the human dwellers and the non-human dwellers, you know, so that it's no longer frightening, you know, things like that. But that actually takes us back off a little tangent, like I said, away from angels. But angels could also be the cause of some of this disturbances that we see in homes that we often think of as hauntings, because maybe they're trying to get our attention, you know, especially if we keep hearing the same frame of music over and over and over. Because, you know, in some form of thought, you know, when angels speak, it's supposed to sound like music, right? In some people's form of thought, and some, you know,
Yes,
or
the
some,
choir of angels.
the choir of angels. So, you know,
My
if,
angels laugh a lot. Go
yeah.
figure. There's a lot of laughing going on around me. And I
Well,
don't know
Deborah,
if
I laugh
they're laughing.
around you a lot too. So what does
Yeah,
that
well, I
tell
don't know if
you?
they laugh with me
I
or
must
at
be an angel.
I don't know if they're laughing with me or at me, but they all seem to have
Could
very
go either
warped
way.
personalities. And you know, but the thing about it is that I do believe that they are here for specific reasons. I have seen myself protected. I have seen what I would call miracles happen, that there's no physical explanation for what just took place, and it saved my life, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
it is not to take away from angels and their roles, it's to actually put them in their proper perspective so that we can honor them in the proper way. But I do have a difficulty, and I'll be honest, when people say, well, I sit down and I pray to my angels, I can't go there. I just can't. I'll let
Well,
you pray to
what is
God more before I'll
what
let
is
you let.
what is prayer, however, but a conversation?
No, they're different for me. I'm sorry. They're
Yeah.
different.
Well, I mean, I think it just depends, because for when I think of prayer to God, I think of a conversation to God, if that makes sense. So I don't
Sure.
I
look
do
I
at,
have
too.
conversations with God, but I also pray to God. And they're
yeah,
two different things.
I don't look at, well, seeing that, like I said, that's where we differ a little bit. I view prayer as no different than a conversation. Um,
I
because
talk to God all day long, but there are times
yeah,
when I have to go and humble myself to show the respect, because I'll sit there and go, God, you are being a little bitch today. I am not happy, and I am very blunt with him, just like I am with everybody in my life.
yeah,
But then there's a time that I have to say, okay, I have to honor you and give you the position that you deserve, because this is not a conversation. This is me
mhm,
honoring you, and this
yeah,
is me respecting you. And I have to differentiate about that, because the reason why, because I also believe in lamenting. There's a whole book in the Bible, Lamentations. We are
Yeah.
meant to lament. We are meant to lament.
Yeah.
And if
And
I'm
now
going to
speaking,
lament,
Mhm.
I'm going to have to honor.
Yeah. Now, speaking as somebody who, does not walk that particular walk of spirituality, for me, in my walk of faith, Yahweh, Jehovah, or God or Allah, as he's often, portrayed in different aspects of the religion, to me is not the one and only. When I look at the book of Genesis, from my religious standpoint, and I'm reading it, and I read that, Yahweh or Jehovah was a part of the Elohim, which was the many, and he separated himself from the many. So when I look at that right in the very first book of the human Bible, I just look at him as one of many, but one who separated himself. And when I look at it, and I read through the Old Testament, I'm reading it from a different perspective. And I've read through it twice. I haven't read through I think I read through the New Testament almost completely 3 times, but it's not been concurrent. It's always been over the course of years. I'll stop, I'll read a little bit, I'll process it, I'll internalize it, and then get through here. So, for me, I just, I look at the rise and fall of Christianity and the angels, to me, were not originally only beholden to that one aspect of the Elohim, which was the many. And when you look at the ancient Hebrew, the Elohim was the feminine many, but Yahweh is very much a patriarchal, masculine energy, if you will, that wanted to be separate. So that's what so when I'm looking at angels and I'm talking about angels in the world around us, I view them completely differently than, say, your average Hebrew person, your average Christian person, or your average Muslim person,
Yeah.
which are the 3 main religions that look at angels, if you
That's because
will.
you're pagan, and pagans
Yeah.
have a very distinct idea of where they're going in their direction. But here's one of the things that does make me laugh a little bit, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, and it's not toward paganism. It's just
Yeah.
when I hear this statement from anybody,
Mm-hmm.
is that Christianity is very patriarchal. Well, if that's the case, how come God made man and woman? It says that we're in his image, and they use
But
and we
originally,
didn't have wait a minute. And
yeah.
we didn't have non-binary pronouns back then. So,
Mm-hmm.
they just went with the style of speech. But if we're made in his image, where did he get the fucking female body from? If
The
it's all
F-bomb came out. What the heck?
Well, but when you think about it, you've got to also understand, when we're looking at these stories or these parables or these histories, depending on one's point of view and how you choose to view it, there is so much that is left out, because in, the 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 Christian versions of the Bible ignore the advent of Lilith, whereas some of the other ones look at the advent of Lilith. So when we look at, for instance, the King James version of the Bible, and we're seeing, oh, Adam was lonely, and so then he took a rib from Adam and made woman. And so originally, if you're looking just specifically at the King James version of the Bible, woman was not made in God's image. Woman was made actually from the rib of man to be subservient to him. And I know a lot of people will be there, but a lot of religious scholars view it that way. I don't view it that way, but a lot of religious scholars view it that way. And that's why so many religions, or I should say denominations, I can't say all of Christianity, I'd say so many denominations within Christianity preach that the woman should be seen and not heard. The woman should be silent in church and things like that. There's a lot of that out there. Now that's gotten us way off of angels, but what I'm getting at is that, when we talk about that patriarchy, we have to look at what was left out, what is not in there.
Yeah, but look at
Like,
also the
look
human
at Canaan.
sacrifices that the pagans used to have. So, I mean, you can't go off these rabbit holes.
No, I'm
because
not just talking about rabbit holes altogether. What I'm saying is we have to understand that when we're talking about this book, we're talking about this book that so many people revere, and they attempt or say that they live their lives by, and many, sadly, in today's world fail. They're leaving out a whole bunch. I mean, look at where, when Cain was evicted, from Eden, allegedly, according to that book, there was Adam, there was Eve, there was Cain, there was Abel. Abel got killed, Cain got kicked out, but where did Cain get his wife? Why did God bother to put a mark upon him so that other people would recognize him? There is a whole lot in that book going through. And then there's the advent of when, from Jesus's birth to the time he was 13 years old. In that King James, the only thing it says is, and Mary held some things in her heart, right? But when you look at other versions of the Bible that predate the King James, you see there's stories and vignettes in there. So when we're talking about angels, okay, regardless of whether we're talking about them from a spiritual standpoint, such as mine, or a spiritual such as a Christian, or spiritual such as a Hebrew or a Muslim, again, these are the major religions that actually deal with what we would officially term as angels. We have to remember and understand that everything that we know about them is 100% edited, directed, dictated, and put down by the hand of man over the centuries. And it will be heavily colored by the language that it was originally written in, and then by the languages that it was successively interpreted into over the years.
Luann, what were you going to say?
I was
I'm
going
sorry,
to
I didn't
say,
mean
I'm
to-
in between.
That's okay. That's okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't want to step over her.
No, I didn't
I'm
want to step
in
over it either.
between. So I understand the viewpoints, but
Mhm.
to me, when I'm talking to God, I'm communing with him. And when
There-
I am communing with him, to me, that's my prayer time.
Mhm.
And so Deborah sees it different, and so do you. So I think I'm kind of in the middle here.
Well, and that just goes to show that we as humans will have our own personal walk with deity, with spirit, with God, or universe, or goddess, or Buddha, or Allah, or whoever you worship, or whoever you follow or think of as the creative divine. It will always be colored by your personal
Yes,
experiences in your life and how
but
you choose to feel and work with God.
right.
Well,
You
and
know,
I think that you really kind of hit the nut on the head, or the nail on the head here, is that we could take every religious writing out there, whether it's called
Mhm.
a holy book or not, and rip it to shreds. With some of it's based upon history and how we understand it. Some of it's based upon the translation and the lack of understanding of the translations because of the old languages, Latin, Hebrew, Greek, that type of thing. I realized that while I believe God doesn't make mistakes, that men do, and that I had to take that into consideration when I was reading a version of King James, and it was talking about unicorns and Psalms. And I believe in a lot of things, but I'm not sure I believe that there are truly unicorns running around in old ye England at the time for them to be writing about when they were doing the King James version. But that was synonymous with a lot of the romantic period writings.
And
And it's at that one time there was 32 unicorns in the Bible.
and this is why I think that we have different views of angels and how they help us and how we work with
Yes.
them.
So my whole point has been, and which is why, even though I identify as Christian, but I have been kicked out of church twice and don't have a Christian affiliated church other than one I run myself for my grandchildren, is that I believe that the Bible has a lot of good stories in it that teaches us about human nature and how God expects us to behave. But that all of that is moot when you get to the New Testament. And all of that kind of is history. New Testament is now about psychology, spirituality, and how we're expected to have a relationship with God. And so there is a time and place for everything in our relationship with God. You like to talk to him and you're communing. Crystal is talking to him all the time. I used to be the same way. I said, I don't need prayer because I talk to him all the time. I do. I have a running dialogue in my head with God. Please don't let me kill these people today, God. I want to run over these people and shoot them because they pulled out in front. I mean, I am talking to God all day long. Some of it's jokingly, some of it is not. But I realized there comes a point in time where there's just like you can have fun and you can have a beer with a friend and go out and joke like we all three did yesterday. Sometimes you got to sit down and have a one-to-one where you're sitting knee to knee and looking eyeball to eyeball. And that's a whole different type of conversation. And that's what I realized. And that's how my relationship, because it is about a personal relationship, not about a book. And what I finally figured out is that I could talk all day long about conspiracy theories. I can talk all day long about aliens and Bigfoot and ghost hauntings and angels and Nephilim and whether Deborah has angel DNA or not, which I've been told many times. And I'm like, well, is it devil DNA or is it angel DNA? You know, because there's a lot of things going on in my head. Have you looked lately? None of that really matters. All it matters is how you relate to who you believe is in charge of your life and how do you improve that quality of life based upon those beliefs. That's what it boils down to for me. Simple, clear, very concise, makes it much easier.
Now you got me researching unicorns in the Bible, Deborah. And
I knew.
No, but
Hello.
here's the deal though, I think, when you're saying unicorn, you're thinking, the what we consider the modern fantasy animal. But I'm sitting here reading several different viewpoints while we're sitting here listening to you talk, and it's like, well, it could have just as easily have been this Assyrian oryx that went extinct, in 1670 something, or it could, because
you really think they knew that during King James' time, though? Really? Do you think King James was so hip and so scientific and so knowledgeable?
No, you got to remember, though, again, the words and their roots can oftentimes be mistranslated, and one of the viewpoints.
Yeah, but where do we get the picture of the unicorn? From the medieval tapestries. Think about it. We get our pictures of unicorns from the medieval tapestries. Where did they get that little picture from? Really, I don't give a shit. It doesn't matter to me, I just don't. But the point is it brought home to me that man can do whatever he wants to do and trying to define how he wants us to relate to God. And we have to define that for ourselves.
Yeah, but when we look at that root word, it could have just, this mentions that it could have been something that was just mistranslated because of a similarity in syllables in a translation of a word. So that then brings to mind this concept of the modern day fantasy of the unicorn. But when you read the descriptions of it, it was said to move like a cow or a calf or a bull. And and it sounds to me more like they're describing something like an oryx to me, which if you viewed it from the side, the horns could look as one, it could be one or two horns. So, when I'm looking at all of this, I can, and when I think of all of the animals that were alive that are no longer alive, it could be referencing something we don't even know about, that.
Yeah, Noah wasted a lot of time getting those animals on that damn ark.
Well, and I still don't believe he got them all.
I think that this is an age-old problem. Interpretation. Who wrote it? What did they mean? I mean, it's the same thing. And the interpretation I have when we start back with our original angels is, how do I see them? I see colors, and colors are associated with certain angels for me. And so it's my interpretation. How do you see them? It's just like Deborah said. Do you know you have a big, tall angel following you around? I mean, people see angels in different ways. So did that mean that person saw the body or just the outline? Or, did they identify, hey, this is an angel because he's got wings? Okay, go. Go, Crystal.
I have an answer to that. So when we're talking about esoteric or theological systems, especially ones that are ancient, certain concepts and ideas or descriptions of things are passed down through generations. And so basically, I call this the diamond aspect, right? When whether I'm looking at a small little tiny crystal or diamond, or I'm looking at one so big, either way, I can only see one aspect of it. And my human perception is going to define and say, okay, they're all going to have the same, no matter whether I look at it, you look at it, or Deborah looks at it, we're all going to see the same number of facets, but we're going to describe those facets differently. We're going to perceive those colors that reflect it and those planes slightly differently. So we're going to have different descriptions of it. And as our perceptions and growth in life change, then our descriptions might change silently. However, but because we all have that same core element, that's why when you think, for instance, of Gabriel, you think immediately of the color blue. You think immediately of, you know, the ocean. You think immediately of, you know, this color sash and this color hair and standing in this pose. And that is because he has been described, that energy, that being has been described to us over the centuries and eons in such a way that it's part of our subconscious and cellular genetic memory. And so he knows, okay, if I appear like this and at least get 1, 2, 3 points correct, then people will recognize me for who I am.
Yeah.
I look at, a good example of this is how when times change is, there is a goddess, and I'm trying to think of her name. She was the sister wife, I want to say, of Quetzalcoatl, but she was a female Aztec deity, right? And she used to appear in where we look the southwestern United States, and I'll have to look up the details of when this is, but basically she used to appear as the goddess several times a year or whenever there's ashes of portraits, and she would appear to the people as that Aztec goddess. Well, I guess some time passed before her last appearance, and then the advent of Christianity came in, and she tried appearing, and people did not recognize her because they were now following a path of Christ. And so the images or the ways that she was trying to present herself were not coming through. And then all of a sudden, boom, the Virgin of Guadalupe begins to appear in the American Southwest, right? And so if they will not recognize me as I was, then maybe if I present this way. So our ideologies and
But
our
why do
vision.
you think that it's the same person, same spirit? Why do you assume that? What if it's two different spirits?
Well, for me, like I said, this is my perception and my understanding, and this is how I feel that it is based on the things that I've read. For me, it's just entirely too coincidental that some of the descriptions and characteristics are the same. It's coming in the exact same place, in the exact same time frames of when she used to appear. I have a similar form of thought when it comes to certain aspects in history, and I don't have a lot to back up this feeling, like for instance, with the concept of Hecate, Sekhmet, and Kali. You know, 3 different goddesses from 3 different realms, but they're all 3 considered primordial ancient goddesses. And allegedly, about the time that Kali left the Far East, she went south into the West, and then all of a sudden, poof, here's Sekhmet, the world destroyer, another destroying goddess who creates civilization through destruction, who's justice and all that. And then, you know, all of a sudden, you know, the gods wage war against Sekhmet, and they change her. And then they change her from this goddess of justice into this goddess of harlots and prostitutes and orgies. And then, you know, at a certain time, she was said to have left into the far north and west. And then all of a sudden, poof, here comes Hecate. Hecate, a foreign goddess coming into the realm of Greece, who has a home on Olympus and a home in the underworld, but dwells in neither, and becomes the goddess of the crossroads in retirement, if you will. So I've just always felt that as energies move throughout the world and people see them and affect them, then they are changed. I mean, if you look at the transformation or the humbling of Sekhmet, if you will, that's a major transformation, you know, from this all being goddess of retribution and justice and that always was, into this goddess of you know, drunkards and prostitutes and orgies.
But you know what, Crystal? Humans have this wonderful, wonderful talent of rationalization.
They really do. And you just saw an example of it.
And that's what I was going to say. So you could take what you just said, and instead of the fact that they take these energies that have changed What if it's the fact that the people have changed because of their experiences and generational passing down of information and all these things, and they changed the dialect, the story, the play to accommodate who they are now. And that's why we've seen, because if you look at all of the comparisons of gods and goddesses, they're all very similar. They just changed names to fit the dialect of the time or the language of the time, the story. And even with the Bible, we've seen combinations of stories that stay the same, because we seem to have this need overall for the consistency in stories. My point is that neither one of these points matters. What matters, though, is that I see this, and I see it in all religions, because I have friends that are Jews. I have friends that are Christians, and there's so many varieties of Christians. It's just, unbelievable. I have friends that are pagans. All my pagan friends think I'm a great Christian. All my Christian friends think I'm a great pagan. I'm neither. So,
you're just a great human being.
I just try to do my best, and based upon how I define what best is. But the bottom line is that anything, in my opinion, anything that pulls us away from the foundation of what puts us in connection with the next dimension, so that we're not just mind, body, and mental, but also spirit, is
mind, body, and spirit.
It's an abomination. I don't care what you call it, because it's keeping us from reaching our highest heights. And people use rationalizations. They use the strict codes of rituals and of religion and of rules to not only beat up the rest of the world, but beat up themselves. And
we're seeing a lot of that right now.
Absolutely. So, there are angels. I don't think anybody can really, unless you deny that there's God of some kind, if you're an agnostic or atheist, that is going to deny that there are angels. But what does that mean to us? And how does that enhance our relationship with our all-powerful supernatural system that we're going to believe in? That's the whole point, I think.
Yeah. And even with angels, though, I truly don't believe that Christians, Hebrews, and Muslims are the only ones who see angels, because angels are beings of light. They're beings of energy, right? I do truly believe that, because even those that are agnostics or those that are atheistic, that don't believe in God, but they do believe in science and energy, they at least believe in energy, and they believe in the perception of energy. And they're going to perceive the energy of angels differently than, say, I would. I'm going to perceive the energies of angels maybe similarly to Deborah, but also maybe differently. And Deborah's going to perceive them as the same or similar or different than Luann, and the circle goes on. But the fact is, we all do perceive them in one form or another. And just like with deity, we all will form our own personal walk with that energy and see how it affects our lives, whether we welcome it in, we reject it, or interact with it. So.
And the problem is, we're not accepting individual walk. We're not accepting that here's what I think, but if that's what you want to think, that's okay. That's what needs to happen.
We were talking about that at lunch today, as a matter of fact. I just did our Easter service for the grandkids because they didn't get to come to the house the past 2 Sundays, and we were talking about the true meaning of what Jesus' sacrifice was, and it was not just his physical death, but the supernatural sacrifice was. And I was shocked at how much the kids already knew about what I was trying to teach them. And I'm like, how do you know all this? And they go, you taught us this. And I didn't really recall that. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but I was sitting there thinking, these kids are so far ahead of the curve about what a supernatural relationship with God looks like. However, what I'm doing here is I'm teaching them and training them so that it will be really hard for them to ever belong to a church. And I say that because I have the same problem. I have a hard time fitting into a church.
When I was in high school, I was a practicing Methodist, and most of my friends were practicing Baptist.
Did they get good at it? Did they get good at it? Did they practice?
I guess so, because they told me how every week or I was saved today. And I thought, well, I was saved once, but okay. And I was very confused, and I was also confused because they would say, well, if you don't believe the way we do, then you're going to hell. And I didn't believe that. I didn't believe that. I just had to, I believed that we had to believe in one God and Jesus, and that's what was going to save us, not the fact that we were Methodist or Baptist or Catholic or, so I stayed confused most of that time. So it's good that you are getting them to think on their own.
Well, I definitely give them a lot to think about. I do. And I think it's a crime on many levels when I talk to people, because I did spiritual coaching for a long time, and it was heartbreaking to me to talk to people and say, I don't have a religious or spiritual tribe. And because they had been told some of the same things that you were told. And I do think that there's an accountability there that I don't want to ever have to stand up and say I turned someone away from God or from having a better spiritual life because of my condemnation or judgment, or I said something that was really, hurtful like that, So that's one of the things that I use as my gauge. And so then, the other thing that I always find ironic, though, is that I'm very rebellious, very rebellious. And people go, you talk about God, but you cuss like a sailor. And I'm like, yeah, so why do you care?
There's absolutely nothing in the Bible about against using curse words. Most of the curse words we have today were created by the modern or the ancient Christian church,
No, this says don't curse people. That's not using curse words.
Exactly. There's difference.
Well, don't wish them well. Don't wish them ill.
Actually, believe it or not, those Christian priests were the ones cursing people when the whole concept of God damn came from may God damn you.
Yeah.
That wasn't the Christians wouldn't say that's a curse. I would say that's a curse, FUCK, forbidden unlawful carnal knowledge. A lot of the curse words that we have today came from that Christian church. And again, the reason why they're taboo is because mankind decided, I don't like that word. It hits
Let's talk about cuss words next week.
I think curse words would be a wonderful topic. My favorite one is fuck. I can take you 21 different definitions for the word fuck, and I can use it. I can carry on an entire conversation with that word.
Okay, so all right, so here's our next thing, because we need to round this up. But here's my question that we can start with. All right. Okay. Do you like to fuck, Crystal?
Oh, hell yes.
Luann, do you like to fuck?
Why, yes.
So do I. So why is it something horrible and aggressive and mean to say, fuck you? Why isn't it like, I love you, have a good day, fuck you, have some good fuck? Why isn't it a celebration?
I think, honestly, I have some thoughts on that, in all honesty, and I'll try to remember them next week. But, if you think about, the society that we live in, predominantly the Western society, and the modern interpretations and sex, it was, sex was something that men enjoyed, women didn't. And so if you're telling another man, fuck you, you're basically equating them with a woman, which to me is an upgrade, but to some of the male machismo out there might come as an insult, depending on how they view women.
It should be a happy thing. And who doesn't explore that in their life,
I agree. So, we all need more sex in our life.
It's the
okay. So I hope you and your angels all have a wonderful week. And say hello to Ignatius. He's over here behind me laughing, going, oh my God, you're so wrong. You're so wrong. So I hope God enjoys me half as much as Ignatius does, because Ignatius thinks I'm hilarious. So
well, I have Raphael, who is the angel of healing. So there you go.
Yes, you do. We call him Ralphie. So, all right. Tell people where they can find you, Luann.
herbal-lou.com. herballu1105@gmail.com.
And if we were in England, it would be herbal. What are you doing? We don't need to see your cleavage right now.
Yes, you do.
All right. Tell them where they can find you, Missy.
You can find me right here at www.barutiSpa.com.
We can't read that. It's
Push
Well,
not focused.
No,
there we
oops.
go. It's not wiggling anymore. It's upside down. It's sideways.
It's not focused. It's
I can
Baruti
see it
Spa.
I can see it just fine on mine. Okay, so it's www.barutispa.com or at Baruti_spa on Instagram or Baruti Spa on Facebook.
So I'm Deborah Colleen Rose, isgu.com for the investigation company. And Miles of Smiles, as you can see behind me, is our entertainment company. We have psychics and interactive, hands-on interactive entertainment of all kinds. And so contact us for that, or you can just send me a psychic message and see if I pick up on it. And just know that if I don't answer, it just means I'm ignoring you. So.
Okay, then.
All right. Everybody say goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Have a great week.
Yep. Have a good week.